12 thrones sit atop the clouds, high above the mortal world, where storms are born and destiny is decided. This is Mount Olympus, home to the most powerful beings in ancient mythology, the 12 Olympian gods. But who were they really? Were they flawless, immortal beings of light and wisdom, or reflections of the very humans who worshipped them, proud, jealous, passionate, and cruel? Before the rise of empires, before kings wore crowns, these gods ruled the world, commanding the skies, the seas, the earth, and even death itself. They weren't just divine figures. They were symbols of human desire, power, and fear. Each god represented something deeper: Zeus, authority and temptation; Athena, wisdom and restraint; Ares, war and chaos; Aphrodite, beauty and desire. Together, they formed a family, a dysfunctional one, filled with love, rivalry, betrayal, and revenge. Because even on Olympus, perfection never existed. So today, we'll climb Olympus itself. We'll uncover the truth behind these 12 divine rulers, their rise, their power, their myths, and the humanity that made them unforgettable. Before the 12 Olympians ruled from their shining thrones, before Zeus hurled his lightning across the heavens, the world was ruled by beings far older, ancient, immense, and terrifying. They were called the Titans. Long before time as we know it began, there was only chaos, a swirling void of darkness and potential. From that nothingness emerged the first beings, primordial deities. Among them was Gaia, the earth itself, and Uranus, the endless sky. Together, Gaia and Uranus gave birth to many powerful children: the Titans, the Cyclops, and the hundred-handed giants. The Titans were mighty and proud, their forms vast as mountains, their voices like thunder over the seas. They were the first rulers of the cosmos, the first generation of divine order. But peace was never meant to last. Uranus, fearing the strength of his own children, imprisoned the Cyclops and the hundred-handed ones deep within the earth, inside Gaia's own body. The pain of their imprisonment tore through her like earthquakes and storms. And so, Gaia began to plot a rebellion against her own husband. She crafted a great sickle of unbreakable metal and whispered to her Titan sons, "Who among you will stand against your father?" One stepped forward, the youngest and boldest of them all, Cronus. Driven by ambition, Cronus ambushed Uranus as he descended to the earth, and with a single strike, he overthrew him, cutting him down and seizing his throne. The age of Uranus ended, and the age of the Titans began. Under Cronus's rule, the world entered a golden age, a time of peace, abundance, and order. Mortals, if they existed at all, lived in harmony with the land. But behind that peace, fear was growing. Because the prophecy had already been spoken: as Cronus had overthrown his father, so too would his own child overthrow him. And so, when his wife Rhea bore him children, Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, and Poseidon, Cronus did something unthinkable. He devoured them, one by one. Each time Rhea gave birth, Cronus opened his jaws and swallowed the child whole. To him, it was survival. To Rhea, it was despair. Her heart broke with every loss, until at last, when she was to bear her sixth child, she could no longer bear the horror. She fled to the island of Crete, and there, hidden in a cave surrounded by nymphs and divine protectors, she gave birth to her final son, Zeus. To protect him, Rhea wrapped a stone in swaddling cloth and gave it to Cronus, who without hesitation, swallowed it whole, believing he had consumed his last thread. Meanwhile, young Zeus was raised in secret. According to legend, he was fed the milk of the divine goat Amalthea, while the Curetes, warriors of Crete, clashed their shields and swords to mask the infant's cries so Cronus would never hear him. Years passed. Zeus grew strong, not only in body but in will. He learned the ways of the world, the secrets of the earth, and the wrath of injustice. When he came of age, Gaia herself whispered to him, as she once had to Cronus, "It is time." Zeus returned to confront his father. But before he could strike, he sought wisdom. With the help of Métis, the goddess of cunning and intelligence, he prepared a potion, a divine elixir, and tricked Cronus into drinking it. Within moments, the Titan king convulsed and roared in agony, vomiting out the children he had swallowed so long ago, one after another, fully grown and furious. Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, Poseidon, reunited at last, the 6 children of Cronus swore vengeance. Together, they rose against the Titans, in what would become known as the Titanomachy, the greatest war the universe had ever seen. For 10 long years, gods and titans clashed across heaven and earth. The mountains shattered under their fury. Oceans boiled. The sky itself burned. Cronus led the titans from Mount Olympus, while Zeus and his siblings fought from the peaks of Mount Olympus. At first, the war stood at a stalemate. Neither side could claim victory. But then, Zeus turned to those who had been imprisoned long ago, the Cyclops and the 100-handed giants, and freed them from their ancient chains. In gratitude, the Cyclops forged weapons for the young gods. For Zeus, the lightning bolt; for Poseidon, the trident; and for Hades, the helm of invisibility. Armed with divine power, the Olympians struck with fury. The earth cracked open, rivers reversed their flow, and the heavens screamed. The 100-handed giants hurled mountains like stones, crushing titan after titan beneath their weight. And at last, Cronus fell, his sickle shattered, his throne reduced to dust. Zeus and his siblings had triumphed. The titans were cast down into Tartarus, a pit so deep even light could not reach it. There, the 100-handed ones stood guard for all eternity. And from that moment on, a new order was born. The age of the Olympians had begun. Zeus took the sky as his domain, the thunder, the storms, and the throne of the heavens. Poseidon claimed the sea, its depths, its creatures, and its endless tides. Hades took the underworld, the realm of the dead, unseen but powerful. Hera became queen of Olympus, guardian of marriage and loyalty. Demeter watched over the harvest and the earth's fertility. And Hestia kept the sacred flame, the warmth of home and hearth. These 6 children of Cronus would form the foundation of Olympus, and from their rule would emerge the next generation of divine power: Athena, Apollo, Artemis, Ares, Hephaestus, Hermes, Aphrodite, and Dionysus. 12 in all, the greatest assembly of gods the world would ever know. From their marble thrones high above the mortal world, they watched over kingdoms, guided heroes, and shaped the destiny of humankind. But their story was far from peaceful, because power, even divine power, always comes with a price. And soon, the gods who conquered the titans would find themselves facing enemies not from the underworld or the heavens, but from within. At the heart of Olympus sits a throne of white marble and gold. Around it, the air hums with divine power, the scent of storm and ozone. Upon that throne rests the mightiest of all gods, the ruler of the heavens, the wielder of thunder. Zeus. He is the god of the sky, the bringer of rain, the master of lightning, the guardian of order among gods and men. When he speaks, the clouds gather. When he grows angry, mountains tremble and the seas rise in defiance. But Zeus was more than just the lord of thunder. He was authority itself, the symbol of divine law, kingship, and fate. To the ancient Greeks, he was the father of gods and mortals alike, the one who upheld justice, punished arrogance, and rewarded those who respected the balance of the cosmos. And yet for all his divine might, Zeus was not perfect. He was powerful, yes, but also prideful, vengeful, and easily swayed by desire. His story is not merely one of strength, but of temptation and control, of a god forever balancing the weight of heaven with the weakness of his own heart. After overthrowing his father Cronus and casting the Titans into Tartarus, Zeus divided the world with his brothers. Poseidon claimed the sea, Hades took the underworld, and Zeus claimed the sky, the vault of heaven, the domain of storms, the very seat of Olympus itself. But his rule wasn't merely about territory, it was about hierarchy. Zeus saw himself as the protector of cosmic order, what the Greeks called dike, the balance between justice and chaos. Every oath, every promise, every bond between mortals and immortals was sacred in his eyes. He watched over kings and judges, ensuring that justice, or divine wrath, was always served. When a ruler acted with fairness, Zeus blessed his land with gentle rains. When a tyrant rose and corrupted power, Zeus struck his palace with lightning. To disobey Zeus was to defy the very laws of nature. Zeus's greatest weapon was his lightning bolt, forged by the Cyclops during the war against the Titans. It wasn't merely a weapon, it was a symbol of judgment. With a flick of his wrist, Zeus could obliterate armies, silence rebellion, or split mountains apart. But the lightning wasn't only destruction, it was illumination, a reminder that divine power could both give life and take it away. When the world grew dark and uncertain, Zeus's lightning lit the path forward. To the ancients, the thunderbolt symbolized divine truth, sudden, brilliant, and inescapable. No lie, no deceit, no shadow could hide from it. Yet even the king of the gods could not escape the turmoil of the heart. After the war, Zeus sought a queen worthy of Olympus, and found her in Hera, his sister and the goddess of marriage and childbirth. Their union was grand, sacred, and divine. The other gods rejoiced, the heavens themselves shimmered in celebration. Together, they ruled Olympus, Zeus the father, Hera the mother. But beneath the surface, their marriage was anything but peaceful. Zeus's passion was boundless, and his desire often turned toward mortals and other goddesses. He transformed into countless forms to pursue them: a swan for Leda, a bull for Europa, a golden shower for Danae. Each affair brought forth children, demigods and heroes destined to shape history. But for every act of love, there was also wrath. Hera, consumed by jealousy and pride, punished the women Zeus loved and the children they bore. Her hatred fell upon mortals like a curse, from Io, who was turned into a cow, to Heracles, whose life became a cycle of torment and impossible trials. Their marriage, though divine, mirrored the struggles of mortal unions: love and betrayal, devotion and revenge. Together, they represented the eternal tension between order and chaos, loyalty and temptation. Zeus's affairs are countless, each one carrying mythic weight. Through them, he fathered gods, heroes, and monsters. With Leto, he fathered the twins Apollo and Artemis, symbols of light and balance. With Semele, he fathered Dionysus, the god of wine and ecstasy. With Maia, he fathered Hermes, the trickster and messenger. And with Métis, the goddess of wisdom, he conceived Athena, who would later spring from his head fully grown and armored. Each union was more than passion, it was symbolic. Every child reflected an aspect of Zeus's nature: his intellect, his strength, his duality. The Greeks saw in these myths not mere tales of lust, but the creation of divine balance, for from chaos and desire often came wisdom and order. Still, to many mortals, Zeus's actions felt cruel and unjust. He deceived women, defied vows, and stirred endless conflict. Even the gods questioned him at times, but none dared challenge his throne. For despite his flaws, Zeus remained the ultimate source of divine law. His authority was unquestionable, his power absolute. Zeus was not only king, he was the ultimate arbiter of fate. He decided the outcomes of wars, the fates of heroes, and even the lives of gods themselves. When mortals grew arrogant, believing they could challenge the heavens, Zeus struck them down. He destroyed Salmoneus, who tried to imitate his thunder. He punished Ixion, who dared desire Hera, and he cast down Tantalus, who betrayed divine trust. But Zeus was not always wrathful. He was also merciful. When Prometheus defied him by giving fire to humankind, Zeus's punishment was terrible, eternal torment, but within it lay a lesson: that divine gifts come with divine consequence. To the Greeks, this was justice, not cruelty. For even gods must maintain order, and without balance, the universe would collapse into chaos. Perhaps one of the most famous glimpses into Zeus's judgment came during the Trojan War. Though the gods themselves chose sides, Hera and Athena aiding the Greeks, Aphrodite supporting Troy, Zeus sought to remain above the chaos. He knew that fate had already decided Troy's fall, and so he allowed destiny to unfold, even when his own children and lovers were caught in the storm. At times, he intervened, tilting the scales of battle, sending omens through thunder and lightning. But in the end, Zeus stood as the silent overseer of destiny, proving that even the king of gods could not escape the web of fate. Zeus's reign was powerful, but never peaceful. He was respected, feared, and often questioned. His temper was legendary, his pride immeasurable. He punished defiance harshly, even among his own kin. When the giants, born of Gaia's vengeance, rose against Olympus, Zeus crushed them with his thunder. When his own daughter Athena defied him, he met her challenge not with anger but with cunning, for even the king of gods must be wise. Zeus's rule reveals a paradox: to hold ultimate power means living forever at war with oneself. For every act of justice, there was a shadow of tyranny, for every triumph, a hint of guilt. He was not good or evil, he was balance itself. And perhaps that's why the Greeks revered him so deeply. Because Zeus was not just a god of storms, he was a mirror of humanity. A being who could love, rage, betray, and forgive. A ruler who could hold the world together, yet barely hold himself. To this day, Zeus's image remains etched in stone and memory. In temples and myths, he is forever depicted as the ideal of power, a bearded king, thunderbolt in hand, watching over the world from above. But behind that grandeur lies a deeper truth. Zeus was a god born from rebellion, sustained by desire, and defined by his struggle to maintain order in a world of chaos. His lightning was not just a weapon, it was a warning. A reminder that even kings, mortal or divine, must answer for their choices. And as long as storms roll across the heavens, the voice of Zeus still echoes, commanding, booming, eternal. Zeus ruled with thunder, but it was not thunder that made him a god. It was his endless fight to control it. Every king needs a queen, and on Mount Olympus, none shone brighter or fiercer than Hera, the queen of heaven. She was the goddess of marriage, women, and childbirth, a divine symbol of loyalty, family, and commitment. But in the world of gods, where power and desire knew no limits, loyalty came with a heavy price. Hera was the daughter of the titans Cronus and Rhea, making her both sister and wife to Zeus. Born amidst chaos, devoured by her father, and later freed by Zeus, she was no stranger to pain, nor to survival. When Zeus overthrew the titans and took the throne of Olympus, Hera became his queen, ruling by his side. Together, they seemed unstoppable, the divine embodiment of order and royalty. But behind the golden thrones and sacred vows, lay storms that no mortal eye could see. In myth, the union of Zeus and Hera was meant to represent the harmony of heaven and earth, a cosmic marriage between power and devotion. Their wedding was the grandest ever seen in Olympus. Every god and goddess attended, nymphs sang hymns, and Gaia herself gifted them a golden apple tree that bore eternal fruit, a symbol of love everlasting. But that golden fruit would become a haunting symbol of irony, because while Hera embodied the sanctity of marriage, her husband was its greatest violator. Zeus's countless affairs with goddesses, nymphs, and mortal women tore their union apart, each betrayal carving a deeper wound into Hera's divine heart. Yet she remained the queen, proud, unyielding, unwilling to step down or fade into silence. When Hera's jealousy stirred, Olympus trembled. Her rage was not wild, it was precise, cold, calculated, a queen's vengeance, not a lover's tantrum. Hera could not strike Zeus directly, for he was the king of gods, master of thunder and law. So instead, she punished those he loved. One of her most infamous victims was Heracles, the demigod son of Zeus and a mortal woman, Alcmene. From the moment Heracles was born, Hera despised him, not for what he did, but for what he represented, the proof of her husband's unfaithfulness. When Heracles was still an infant, Hera sent 2 giant serpents into his cradle to strangle him. But the child, blessed with divine strength, crushed the snakes with his bare hands. Years later, she would drive him into madness, a madness so great that he killed his own family. And though Heracles would one day achieve redemption, the shadow of Hera's wrath never left his legend. Her vengeance extended beyond heroes. She turned the nymph Echo into nothing but a voice in the mountains, cursed the mortal Io to wander the earth as a cow, and even blinded Tiresias for daring to speak truths she didn't wish to hear. Yet through all her fury, Hera's actions weren't born purely from hatred. They came from betrayal, from the pain of a queen forced to watch her husband defy every vow he swore before the heavens. Hera was more than her anger. She was the protector of women, the guardian of marriage, and the divine embodiment of female strength. In temples across Greece, from Argos to Samos, women prayed to her for safe childbirth, for fidelity, for justice. They saw in Hera not just a goddess, but a reflection of themselves, a woman of immense dignity, forced to endure the impossible. To mortals, she symbolized the trials of loyalty, the burden of staying strong when love becomes a battlefield. To poets, she was the eternal paradox, a goddess who could bless a union with divine love and curse it with divine rage. The peacock became her sacred symbol. Its countless eyes on its feathers were said to represent her vigilance, a reminder that no sin escapes the eyes of the Queen of Heaven. Though Zeus ruled Olympus, it was Hera who understood its politics. She was a master manipulator, a strategist whose influence shaped divine affairs as much as her husband's thunderbolt did. When gods quarreled, it was Hera who formed alliances, sometimes against Zeus himself. In one myth, she even joined Poseidon and Athena in a rebellion against the king of gods. They chained Zeus in his sleep, stealing his thunderbolt. But when he was freed by the hundred-handed Briareus, Hera was punished, hung from the sky with golden chains, wrists bound, humiliated before all Olympus. And yet, she endured. Because that's what queens do. They endure. Her pride was both her shield and her downfall, but it also made her unforgettable. Even when her actions were cruel, her motives were deeply human. She wasn't evil. She was hurt, betrayed, determined to defend the one thing she valued most, respect. Over time, artists softened her image. No longer the scorned wife, but the divine matron, the embodiment of marriage, family, and feminine power. In marble and bronze, she's often shown seated beside Zeus, regal, calm, and composed, with a crown of lilies or a scepter topped with a lotus. The peacock walks by her side, feathers fanned like a living tapestry of divine eyes. But behind that serene face lies a reminder. Even the goddess of marriage was never free from heartbreak. Even immortals struggle with love, and that's what makes Hera so fascinating. She's not just a goddess of perfection, she's a mirror of humanity. She embodies every ounce of pride, jealousy, and love that defines us. Hera's story isn't about vengeance. It's about dignity in the face of betrayal. It's about a woman, a goddess, who refused to let the world see her broken. She may have been wounded by love, but she never surrendered her crown. Even centuries later, the echo of her presence still lingers. Every time a vow is spoken, every time a couple stands beneath the sky and promises forever, the spirit of Hera watches, silently, proudly. Because despite her pain, Hera remains the eternal symbol of commitment. Not the naive kind, but the kind forged through trials, where love is tested and loyalty bleeds. On Olympus, she ruled with both grace and fury. Among mortals, she is remembered not for perfection, but for her strength. She was, and always will be, Hera, the Queen of Heaven. Before the gods ruled Olympus, before men built their cities and named their kings, there was the sea. Endless, mysterious, untamed. And from its depths rose a god whose power rivaled even the skies themselves. Poseidon, Lord of the Sea. To mortals, he was both protector and destroyer. To sailors, he was hope and doom. For the sea could bless, or it could swallow whole. And Poseidon, its master, was no different. Poseidon was one of the three great sons of Cronus and Rhea, brother to Zeus, ruler of the sky, and Hades, ruler of the underworld. When the three brothers overthrew their father and divided the world, Zeus claimed the heavens, Hades took the realm of the dead, and Poseidon drew the sea, that endless blue world stretching beyond the edge of all knowledge. To him, the ocean wasn't just water. It was life, vast and unpredictable, a reflection of his own spirit. Poseidon built his palace beneath the waves, a magnificent fortress of coral and pearl, guarded by sea nymphs and creatures unknown to man. There, surrounded by beauty and power, he ruled the waters with a force that could calm tempests or unleash destruction upon the world above. Poseidon was not a god of patience. He was emotion itself, his moods rising and falling like the tides. When pleased, the seas were calm, gentle, and sparkling under the sun. But when angered, storms raged, ships sank, and entire coastlines vanished beneath his fury. His weapon, the trident, was forged by the Cyclops, a three-pronged spear capable of shaking the earth and stirring the oceans to madness. It symbolized his control over both creation and destruction. For Poseidon was not only the god of the sea, he was also called the Earth Shaker, the one who caused earthquakes when he struck the ground in anger. To the Greeks, this was the power of Poseidon, a reminder that nature itself obeyed no man. One moment, it gives life. The next, it demands it back. Yet within that fury, Poseidon held the spirit of creation. In ancient myth, it was Poseidon who created the first horse. The story begins with his pursuit of Demeter, goddess of the harvest. To escape his advances, she transformed herself into a mare and fled across the earth. Poseidon, relentless, changed into a stallion and caught her. From their union came Arion, a divine horse who could speak and run faster than the wind. Through this act, Poseidon became known as the creator and protector of horses, and riders across Greece prayed to him for victory and safety. The horse, graceful yet powerful, was a perfect symbol of Poseidon himself, untamed, majestic, and unpredictable. Among all gods, one of Poseidon's greatest rivalries was with Athena, goddess of wisdom. The two once competed for the favor of a new city that mortals were building, a city that would one day become Athens. To win the people's devotion, each god offered a gift. Poseidon struck the earth with his trident, and from the rock sprang a fountain of water. But the water was salty, undrinkable. It represented power and might, but not life. Then Athena stepped forward. She planted a seed that grew into the first olive tree, a symbol of peace, prosperity, and endurance. The people chose Athena's gift, and the city was named in her honor. Poseidon's pride was wounded, but his rivalry with Athena wasn't only about a city, it was about philosophy. Poseidon represented instinct, emotion, power without restraint. Athena stood for reason, strategy, and balance. Their conflict mirrored humanity's eternal struggle between emotion and intellect, chaos and order. To truly understand Poseidon, one must understand the sea itself. It is beautiful, shimmering with light, teeming with life. But it is also deadly, deep, dark, and merciless. Sailors knew this duality well. Before every voyage, they prayed to Poseidon, offering bulls or pouring wine into the waves, begging for calm waters and safe passage. Because they knew, to offend the sea was to invite death. Yet, Poseidon wasn't cruel for cruelty's sake. He was balance. He reminded mortals that power always comes with risk, that creation and destruction are not opposites but twins. When the ocean roared, it was Poseidon's voice. When it was still, it was his silence. Every storm, every ripple, was his mood made manifest. In this way, Poseidon represented the fragile peace of existence, the moment between calm and chaos that defines life itself. Poseidon's temper shaped many ancient stories. When the Trojan War raged, he sided at times with the Greeks, but when King Laomedon of Troy refused to pay him for building the city's walls, Poseidon sent a sea monster to destroy the land. He punished Odysseus, the clever hero of Ithaca, for blinding his son, the Cyclops Polyphemus. For years, Odysseus wandered the seas, cursed and lost, as Poseidon unleashed storm after storm, a punishment not of cruelty but of pride. Because to defy the god of the sea was to challenge nature itself. And yet, despite his wrath, Poseidon also showed mercy. He guided sailors, blessed fishermen, and watched over those who respected his domain. The sea, like Poseidon, does not hate, it simply is. It moves, it breathes, it takes, it gives. And in its rhythm, mortals saw the will of the god who ruled it. Poseidon's presence was everywhere. His symbols, the trident, the dolphin, the horse, adorned temples and ships. His name was invoked before every voyage, every storm, every race across the waves. The Isthmian Games, held near Corinth, were celebrated in his honor. Riders and athletes dedicated their victories to him, believing that the same energy that moved the tides flowed through their veins. In many coastal cities, he was second only to Zeus in power. Even the mighty Spartans prayed to Poseidon before battle, for they knew that his earthquakes could shatter walls or hearts. Poseidon was not a villain. He was not a hero. He was nature personified, the eternal reminder that the world is alive and beyond control. Through him, the Greeks learned respect for the elements, for balance, for the unseen forces that govern existence. To those who looked upon the horizon, Poseidon was both the promise of discovery and the warning of destruction. He was the untamed heart of the world, the whisper that says, "Do not forget who truly rules." He created life and ended it. He shook the earth and calmed the waves. He was beauty and terror intertwined, the poetry of the sea given form. And in every wave that crashes upon the shore, in every thunderous roar that echoes through the deep, his spirit still endures. Because the sea never truly sleeps. Beneath the mountains, beneath the roots of forests and rivers, there lies a realm untouched by sunlight. A silent kingdom, eternal and absolute, where every soul must one day arrive. And at its throne sits Hades, the god of the underworld. He is not the god of evil. He is not a demon or devil, as later ages would imagine. He is duty itself, the silent keeper of balance, the ruler of the unseen world that waits for all living things. Hades was the eldest son of Cronus and Rhea, brother to Zeus and Poseidon. When the three brothers defeated the Titans and divided the cosmos, Zeus took the sky, Poseidon the sea, and Hades drew the underworld. It was not a punishment, but it felt like one. While Zeus ruled among the clouds and Poseidon among the waves, Hades ruled in shadow. No sunlight touched his kingdom, no song of birds echoed through his halls. Yet, from his throne in the depths, he maintained the order of the world. For life could not exist without death, and death could not exist without a keeper. He was the unseen balance, the God who made sure the cycle of life continued, who ensured that every mortal, no matter how powerful, would one day return to the dust from which they came. The underworld of Hades was not a place of fire or torment. It was a kingdom of silence, divided into many parts, each serving a purpose in the great order of eternity. At its entrance flowed the 5 rivers of the dead, the Styx, the river of unbreakable oaths, the Acheron, river of sorrow, the Lethe, river of forgetfulness, the Phlegethon, river of fire, and the Cocytus, river of wailing. To cross into his realm, every soul had to be ferried by Charon, the skeletal boatman, who demanded payment. A single coin placed beneath the tongue of the dead. Those who had no coin were left wandering the shores for eternity. Beyond the gates stood the monstrous Cerberus, the 3-headed hound of Hades, both guardian and companion, ensuring no soul escaped. Inside, the underworld was divided. The Asphodel Meadows, where ordinary souls wandered in dreamlike peace. The Elysian Fields, a paradise for heroes and the virtuous, and the Tartarus, the deepest pit, where the wicked and the Titans themselves were imprisoned. And at the heart of it all stood Hades, not as a tormentor, but as a judge. Silent, just, unyielding. Hades' name literally means, the unseen one. And fittingly, much of what he ruled was hidden from mortal eyes, not only the dead, but the treasures buried within the earth. Gold, silver, and precious gems, all these belonged to Hades. He was the god of wealth, Pluton, from which the word plutocracy, rule by wealth, was born. But unlike his brother Zeus, who basked in lightning and glory, Hades kept his riches buried, unseen, untouched. He was a god who took no joy in power, only in balance. To him, life and death were not enemies, they were partners in the endless cycle of existence. Though Hades ruled over countless souls, he was profoundly alone. He rarely left his domain, rarely joined the other gods on Olympus. The world above belonged to sunlight and laughter, his world to shadows and silence. To mortals, he was feared. Even saying his name aloud was considered unlucky. People called him by softer titles instead, the wealthy one, the silent king, hoping to earn mercy or avoid notice altogether. But Hades was not cruel. He was inevitable. He simply did what must be done. He did not chase mortals nor seek worship. He waited, patiently, eternally, because every life, sooner or later, came to him. Yet even in the deepest shadows, love can bloom. One day, as Hades roamed the upper world, he saw Persephone, the daughter of Demeter, goddess of the harvest. She danced among the meadows, gathering flowers, her laughter filling the air like sunlight. In that moment, something stirred within the god of the dead, something he had never known: desire, longing, loneliness. Without warning, the earth split open. Hades rose from the chasm in his black chariot, drawn by shadowy horses, and carried Persephone away into the underworld. Demeter searched the world in grief, and as her sorrow deepened, the crops withered. Fields turned to dust, rivers dried, and famine spread across the mortal world. The balance of life and death was broken, for even Hades could not defy the law of nature without consequence. Finally, Zeus intervened. He sent Hermes, the messenger god, to negotiate Persephone's return. But before she left, Hades offered her a pomegranate, and when she ate its seeds, she bound herself to his world forever. So a compromise was made. Persephone would spend half the year with her mother in the sunlight, and half the year with Hades in the underworld. And thus, the seasons were born. When Persephone returns to her mother, the earth blossoms, spring and summer. When she descends to Hades, the world mourns, autumn and winter. Through Persephone, Hades found balance, not of power but of heart. For the first time, the god of the dead knew what it meant to love and what it meant to let go. Hades was never the villain. He did not seek souls, he received them. He did not create suffering, he simply kept order. In truth, he represented what mortals feared most, inevitability. While Zeus ruled over the present, and Poseidon over motion, Hades ruled over the one thing no god or mortal could escape: the end. Yet his realm was not punishment, it was truth. In death, all were equal. Kings and beggars alike laid down their crowns and coins, their names carried only by memory. And Hades, ever silent, kept their stories safe in the endless halls of eternity. To some, that was terrifying. To others, it was peace. Later generations would twist Hades into something darker, a figure of evil, a counterpart to the devil. But in Greek myth, there was no hell, as the world would later imagine. There was only Hades' realm, where the good, the bad, and the forgotten all found their place. He was not a punisher. He was a warden, a keeper, and perhaps the most trustworthy of all the gods. For while Zeus's temper could shake the heavens, and Poseidon's storms could drown empires, Hades never broke his word. He ruled with fairness, with purpose, and with an understanding that power meant responsibility, not chaos. That's why even the other gods respected him, and rarely dared to disturb his kingdom. In every culture, death is the great unknown. But to the ancient Greeks, death was not an end, it was a transition. And Hades stood at the threshold, the silent guardian between what was and what would be. He represented not despair, but mystery, the idea that what's hidden may hold deeper meaning than what's seen. The seeds beneath the soil, the treasures beneath the earth, the truth buried within time, all belonged to him. In that way, Hades was not just the god of death, but of rebirth, renewal, and hidden wisdom. Because every ending carries the promise of a new beginning. Even now, thousands of years later, his name still carries weight, a whisper of awe, a hint of fear, a quiet respect. Every time a grave is marked, every time someone speaks of legacy, memory, or the passage of time, the shadow of Hades lingers. He reminds us that life is precious because it ends. That meaning comes not from eternity, but from the moments we have before we fade. And though his world is cold and silent, it is not cruel, it is honest. So when you think of Hades, don't imagine fire and torment. Imagine stillness, order, a quiet throne in the dark, where a god watches over the souls of all who ever lived, not with hatred, but with understanding. He is not the enemy of life. He is its shadow. And without shadow, there can be no light. He is eternal. He is inevitable. He is Hades, the silent king of the dead. In the golden age of gods, when thunder still ruled the skies and the oceans raged with Poseidon's fury, there emerged a deity unlike any other, calm amidst chaos, reason amidst madness, intellect amidst passion. Her name was Athena, daughter of Zeus, born not of love or pain, but of pure thought itself. The story of Athena's birth is one of the most extraordinary in Greek mythology. It begins with Zeus, tormented by a blinding headache, a pain so intense it made the sky tremble. Seeking relief, he called upon Hephaestus, the god of the forge, who split his skull open with a mighty swing of his hammer. And from that crack in the king of gods' head, emerged Athena, fully grown, armored, and radiant. She did not cry like an infant. She shouted, a cry of battle that echoed across Olympus and down to the mortal world. The gods stopped in awe. There she stood, spear in hand, eyes clear as the dawn, shimmering with intelligence. Unlike her father's thunder, Athena's power was quiet but unstoppable, the force of understanding, the calm before every storm of thought. While others were born from chaos, lust, or vengeance, Athena's birth marked something new. The birth of intellect, the rise of reason in a world ruled by impulse. Athena was the goddess of wisdom, war strategy, and civilization. But unlike her half-brother Ares, who gloried in blood and fury, Athena viewed war as a necessary art, not a passion. She did not fight to destroy, but to preserve balance. Her battlefield was as much the mind as it was the earth. Where Ares charged blindly into conflict, Athena calculated, planned, and struck with precision. To the Greeks, she represented the ideal warrior, disciplined, strategic, and honorable. She stood beside kings and heroes, whispering counsel into their hearts. She was the voice that said, think before you strike. Her wisdom extended beyond war. It encompassed art, law, and science. Under her guidance, cities thrived. She taught mankind weaving, crafts, and the structure of order itself. Her symbol, the owl, became the eternal sign of knowledge, eyes wide, watching even in the darkness. One of her most famous stories tells of her rivalry with Poseidon, the mighty god of the sea. The people of a new city sought a patron deity to protect them. Both gods desired the honor, and so they stood before the council of mortals, each offering a gift. Poseidon struck his trident into the ground, and from the earth sprang a fountain of water, but it was salty, undrinkable. It symbolized his dominion, but not sustenance. Athena stepped forward, touched the soil with her spear, and from it grew the olive tree, a gift of peace, nourishment, and prosperity. The people chose her gift, and the city was named Athens, in her honor. The olive tree became sacred, a symbol of wisdom's triumph over might, of reason's victory over impulse. Poseidon's pride was wounded, and his anger brewed like a storm. But Athena remained calm, unyielding as stone. She had proven that power without purpose was empty. Through her, the Greeks learned that true strength lies not in force, but in understanding when to use it. Throughout Greek mythology, Athena's influence appears again and again, not as a conqueror but as a guide. When Perseus faced the monstrous Gorgon, Medusa, it was Athena who armed him with a reflective shield that allowed him to strike without looking into her deadly eyes. When Odysseus wandered lost after the Trojan War, Athena became his invisible guardian, whispering clever strategies into his dreams, helping him navigate not only seas, but the labyrinth of fate itself. To Odysseus, she was more than a goddess. She was the embodiment of intellect, endurance, and foresight. She also guided Heracles through his labors, Jason through his quest for the Golden Fleece, and countless others who sought victory through cleverness rather than brute strength. Athena's presence was subtle. She did not command like Zeus or seduce like Aphrodite. She inspired. She made heroes greater by sharpening their minds and focusing their purpose. Athena was often described as both gentle and formidable. She was a virgin goddess, not out of coldness but out of independence. Her purity was symbolic. She belonged to no one, ruled by neither lust nor love. Her devotion was to reason and justice. Yet, she was not without emotion. When Arachne, a mortal weaver, dared to claim she was more skilled than Athena herself, the goddess challenged her to a weaving contest. Arachne's tapestry was flawless, even daring to mock the gods. Enraged but impressed, Athena transformed her into a spider, forever weaving her threads. This myth, both cruel and poetic, reveals Athena's dual nature: rational yet prideful, fair yet unyielding. Even wisdom, it seemed, could be blinded by pride. Athena's influence extended far beyond mythology. She was the spiritual cornerstone of Athens, the city that became the birthplace of philosophy, democracy, and art. Temples rose in her honor, none greater than the Parthenon, a masterpiece of balance and geometry that reflected her very essence. Within its marble halls, the Greeks offered prayers not for conquest, but for clarity, the ability to see the world as Athena did, with wisdom. To the people of ancient Greece, Athena wasn't just a goddess, she was an ideal. She represented the potential of humanity to rise above its instincts, to think, to reason, to create. She was the calm voice within every storm, the flicker of light within every dark thought. And while Zeus may have ruled the heavens, it was Athena who guided the hearts and minds of mortals below. Athena's symbols, the owl and the olive tree, carry deep meaning. The owl, with its ability to see in darkness, symbolized knowledge that pierces ignorance. The olive tree, growing slowly but enduringly, symbolized peace, longevity, and wisdom cultivated through patience. Together, they embodied Athena's philosophy that progress takes time, understanding requires patience, and peace is built on clarity, not conquest. Even today, the owl remains an emblem of education and wisdom, appearing on coins, crests, and libraries, a living shadow of Athena's eternal presence. Unlike most gods, Athena's myths rarely end in tragedy. She does not fall victim to her own power, nor to the folly of love or vengeance. She endures because she represents the ideal balance between divine and human, power tempered by understanding. She reminds mortals that the mind is the sharpest weapon of all. That wars can be won before a single drop of blood is shed. That peace, though fragile, is the ultimate victory. In every age, Athena's legacy continues. In the scholar who seeks truth, the strategist who wins without violence, the artist who shapes order from chaos. She is the whisper behind every great idea, the unseen hand behind every moment of insight. For when Zeus ruled with thunder, Athena ruled with light, the light of reason that still burns within humanity today. She was born from the mind of a god, but she lived forever in the minds of men. This was part 1 of the 12 Olympian gods. Who are they really? And in the next episode, we descend once more into myth and fire, to meet the remaining gods who shaped the fate of mortals and immortals alike. If you enjoyed this journey through the halls of Olympus, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, so you won't miss the next chapter of the gods who ruled the heavens.